Welcome to another episode of Take a Seat with Sean Land. If this is your first episode, then this is a channel that we foster and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs in property, finance, and investing. Most importantly, we move you away from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. Today, we've got an absolute gem for you. We've got someone who's an expert in the mortgage world. His name is Paul Anthony Roberts. And today we're going to be talking all about his journey, some of his biggest wins and losses, and what makes him different in the mortgage world. And we'll also find out some of the myths and truths about the mortgage world. And maybe you might want to do his job, so we'll ask him a couple of questions at the end. So Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Sean.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm good. Very happy to be here and have this opportunity to hopefully share some knowledge and some value with you.
Definitely. Well, I know you do more than just mortgages. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm actually a property investor first. I normally walk with a property investor hat on, and I just happen to be a mortgage broker too, where I own a financial services business. So I started out investing in property first. I bought my first house at the age of, I was a little bit older than you, I think, Sean. I bought my first house at the age of 26. Having worked in the city, I was working in the city after graduating from university.
What did you do at university?
I studied accounting and finance.
Oh, we've done the same degree then.
We did the same degree. There's something in that. There's some magic in there somewhere.
Okay.
So it's funny because when I was younger, I had no clue. My dad used to say, you're going to university, you're going to university. I had no clue what I was going to do. But I was always good with numbers. So I thought, I know, I'll be an accountant. I had no clue what an accountant done. I just knew that they weren't poor. So that's what took me down that path. So I was good at maths and physics, and I thought about engineering for a while, but I ended up with the accounting route. And I hadn't looked back since.
And how did you find that course? Was it something that inspired you? Did you enjoy it? Was it worth it going to uni?
Absolutely. More for the social and being away from home. And it's kind of like a rites of passage, more so than the education itself. I don't really believe you need to go to university, but it's a good experience to go that route. Learning about finance, investment, present value of money, CAPM, all of these things also helped. And I wanted to do accountancy because it's understanding the numbers of a business. So again, my dad, who's a big influence on my life, always used to say to me, you're not going to get rich working for anybody else. So in my head, I was always going to set up in business for myself. I just didn't know what. So accountancy I saw as a good basis of learning for that journey.
Sure. And then after you left your degree, is that something you went on to do, or?
It's funny. I landed in the city. So my A-level grades, this is something, again, that I didn't realise at the time, but my A-level grades was one grade too low to get a chartered contract. And so I applied to hundreds of firms and didn't really get through. There's an interesting story about a firm I did get through on, but I'm not going to tell that tonight. If you want to hear that story, you'll have to connect with me and I might share it with you one day. But I ended up in the city as a fund manager's assistant. So I was reading all of these reports, and I thought I was going to end up as a equity analyst and work in asset management. But that didn't quite work out the way I wanted to. And again, I'm not going to go into the details of why those doors were shut in my face. But I ended up navigating back to accountancy, which was my original plan. So I ended up doing ACCA, knocked it all out in 18 months and finished the same time I would have done if I was doing a training contract.
Wow.
So that was my ambition on that.
That ACCA was done in record time if it was 18 months.
Yes. So I'd actually... I was exempt from a couple of papers because I had a relevant degree.
Yes.
But I failed audit. I got 48 out of, and I needed 50. I needed 51, in fact. But instead of just resitting that paper, I did that and the next three. So I did 4. I was doing papers every 6 months. So I did 4 next time round. I was holding down a full-time job at the same time, studying in the evening. So I'd be working 9 to 5 and then
So you still
studying.
held a full-time job on while.
Full-time job, full-time studying, and started buying properties at the same time as well.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. They're some of the toughest exams that you'll ever do. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen my friends take 7 years to do them exams. Do you know what I mean? They're tough exams. But I went into accountancy as well. Mm-hmm. But over my summer holidays, I thought I'd work for my dad's accountant. And I sat down and a big pile of books were thrown at me. I opened them and I started putting it all in the right ledgers on the computer. It's 9 o'clock now, and I went through 1, 2, 3 sort of files, and I was like getting a little bit tired and flustered. I'm like, is it lunchtime? And I looked up and it was 9:15. It was like, you know, watching paint dry. So I knew it didn't inspire me, and I knew it wasn't for me, even though I'm doing this degree. But I ended up finishing the degree because it was a BA honours. And, you know, people do recognise a degree. So when you go in, they see you working in a group. You know, you take leadership because at uni, you're left to do your own group study work. If you've chosen 4 people for your group, you have to lead that and take charge of it. No one else pushes it. And if you don't motivate the other people around you, then it's going to affect your grade. So that's what I felt that uni helped me with, was more being, you know, pushing myself rather than other people pushing me. But the question is, do you spend 3 years doing a degree with £30,000 worth of debt? Or do you take a route where you can be an apprentice or learn a trade for 3 years, have no debt, you're getting paid, and then at the end of it, there's a job waiting for you? You know, so I just want to throw that one out there, because there'll be a lot of people watching thinking, do I go the uni route or do I go a different route? Is there another route?
Do you know, it's kind of swings and roundabouts on that one, because again, I'm gonna harp back to my dad on this, because I almost felt like I didn't have a choice. I was going to uni, and back then, I've got a couple of years on you. Back then, it was either you're going to get a trade or you're going to get a profession, and which means you're either going to work with your hands. If you haven't got a brain, you got to use your hands, or use your hands. If you can't use your hands, you're going to use your brain. And my dad used to say to me, get the degree, because once you've got it, they can't take it away from you. So things have changed now, and I do look at the apprenticeship, because when I went to uni, there were no, I think I was the first year to get a student loan, and that was in my final year, and it was only for the last term. So I had a debt of maybe £900 when I left.
Yes, and similar to me, it was like £1,000 for the whole year.
Yeah.
And it was about £3,000, and I paid through that through my side hustle job.
Sure.
So it was manageable. But £30,000, you're now looking at that as a business deal. Are we doing this or not?
Or not.
And I know we have family pressures as well to saying you're only going to be recognised in this family if you have that piece of paper. But are we just part of a system? Are we part of just a little rat race to say you must run in this wheel? And you need a degree, that piece of paper, then you'll get a job, and then you'll do that job for the next 25, 30 years.
Well, there's no such thing as a job for life anymore. And to maximise your earnings, if you are going a career route, you should change every couple of years to maximise your earnings. It's going to go up. Definitely. But what I would say, there's a 2-tier system in this country, and you get what you pay for. So the best students go to the best schools, and they go to the best universities, and they come out with the best degrees, and they get the best jobs. Let's make no bones about that. If you have a private school education, you're taught to lead. Whereas if you go to a state school, you're almost taught to be an employee. So it depends on your path that you want to choose. If you want to learn about business, you don't need to go to university to learn about business. Just do business, because the cost of entry to get into business now with social media, to market and to get everything out, 50, 60 years ago, you needed capital to buy a shop or a factory or manufacturing equipment. Now, you need a camera, a microphone, and a mobile phone and a computer, and you're in business.
Exactly. If anything, you could probably tell us a little bit about the commercial side of things. How are they valuing commercials right now? Because I'm staying away from commercials unless there's some sort of PD rights where you can convert it into a unit or 2 units, and it's a cheap deal. But how are the lenders looking at, how are they valuing shops? Because that's telling us what the future's doing.
Well, you've got different types of shops springing up, haven't you? So you'll see lots of coffee shops where people are hanging out. Coffee shops are doing well. Storage businesses will do well because Amazon have got to store their goods somewhere. Sorry, I'm not plugging Amazon by any way, but you can pay me if you. Yeah, anyway. Like, you can pay him. So storage warehouses, there's demand for that, distribution and delivery. But your standard high street shop has changed, and the government's done well changing the PD rights. And if, for those who don't understand, PD stands for permitted development, which means you can alter or change the use of a property, whether it be commercial to residential use, without going through the very onerous planning system and process.
There's a top gem there for you guys.
Yeah, so PD, commercial to resi, is, as I'm sure you must be looking at as well. I haven't done a commercial deal yet, but it's definitely one on the horizon.
Well, if you are going to go the commercial route, you definitely got to see the worst case scenarios to cover yourself. But I personally like commercials because it's not just one income from one property. You normally get multiple properties, you know, so you got a flat on top, or the bonus one is 2 flats on top, and then you have a shop at the bottom. Normally the flats at the top are paying for your mortgage, and then when you've got your shop leased out, maybe you might get a premium with that, but at the same time you're obtaining rent. Going forward in the future, I know the high street ones, it's more difficult to convert, but the commercials on the B streets, the side streets, not in the main town centres, they're easier to convert. So we'd always say look at them options.
Definitely.
But Paul, let's come back to you.
Let's come back.
Yeah, let's come back and let's talk a little bit more about your journey. So you've finished university, you've got your accounting and finance degree, you've started a job in finance, the industry. Then what happened? How did you get into your first property?
It's funny. My dad took. I talk about my dad a lot, but he took severance from his job, and he got a 6-figure payoff. Not redundancy, severance. I don't even think they use that word anymore.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So he had all of this money sitting down. It was back when 6 figures was a lot of money. Still is. I'm being facetious. But you could then buy 2-bedroom properties in Leighton, which is where I grew up in East London. You could buy 2-bedroom flats then for like 20 grand. I was like, Dad, why don't you just go and buy a couple of those flats? That'll give you good pension for you, good income, blah, blah, blah. But he had another plan. He was going back home and setting up in Jamaica, and that's fine. And he did very well. We had a few assets put down. So for me, I always saw the opportunity in property. I always saw it from a very young age. But my dad encouraged me to buy a house. As soon as I started working, he's like, go and buy a house. And I was actually looking at flats. He's like, no, forget the flat business. Forget about leasehold. You want to buy a freehold. It's a house. You own the land forever and ever. Amen. It's like, okay. So that's why I bought my first house. So while I was working and going down the accountancy route and qualified and all of the rest of it, I was working in the city. I lived a full life, let's say, probably too full. So I found myself in debt quite quickly. And we can cover this about mistakes that first-time buyers made. I already had a house, mind you, but, credit was starting to become a little bit freer. And it's like, oh, these credit card things, this is good. You don't feel like you're spending money. So I found myself in a bit of debt. And I thought to myself, I could sell my house and just pay it all off and, have some change left over. Can I just divert a little bit? 'Cause I want to talk about my first house. So yes. I bought it and then I moved out and was living with a partner and I rented it out. I rented it to some Universal Credit, DSS tenants at the time, via an agent, mind you. And one night I drove past my house and I could see clean through, right through the back garden. I was like, that's not right. Anyway, I got out of the car and I looked in and it's like, everything was gone. Everything. Down curtains, furniture, white goods, the whole lot. They'd cleaned me out because I'd rented it furnished. I was like, oh my God, this game's just not for me. And at that point, I thought I could have sold then as well, but I didn't. I just refurnished the place, found a tenant myself, decided I'm not using agents. Let me work that out myself. I went directly to the council and got somebody else so that they were paying me directly. And that was a scheme that worked for me. They were there for a long time. So coming back to my full life, I was okay. I was earning good money back then, having just left uni. You know, you're young and still attractive, and they want to give you a job at that age. So I found myself in debt. I didn't sell. I'd had that experience. And then somebody said to me, buy another property. It's like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, I'm in debt. I haven't got any money. And he said, look, I'm going to show you the way. So we started looking at flats, and I went and saw a broker. This was the first time I'd used a broker, because the first mortgage that I got, I just went directly to Abbey National, Santander, as they are now, and got my mortgage. So I found out that I could get another 95% mortgage. The first mortgage I got, by the way, was a 95% mortgage with a 5% cashback. So it didn't actually cost me anything. And my dad had lent me the couple of grand that I needed to buy it. So I'm in debt, and I'm looking at this property. I found a 1-bedroom flat over in Bow Quarter. I don't know if you know it, just it's the old Matchbox factory. They'd converted them all. I bought that flat for 95 grand with a 5% deposit, and I rented it for 6 months. I didn't even give it a lick of paint, and I sold it 6 months later for 125 grand. And the light bulb came on. I was like, I've just made 30 grand in 6 months. And I haven't really done a lot for it. It's just, I've found an opportunity, I've acted on it, I've done this, I've done that, and then I'm out, cleaned off the debt, money in my pocket. It's like, where is my next deal? I want to do this. So at that point is when I started getting active, calling agents. We were buying stuff, ripping stuff out, new kitchen, new bathroom. Yeah. The homes under the hammer stuff. That's what we were doing. And I was buying, fixing up and selling at that point until the early 2000s, when I actually lost my dad. And I had to go to Jamaica for 3 months while he was ill. I went down there for 3 months, and I had a project I'd just bought, and I'd just ripped it out. I'd done the rip out, and there was maybe 40, 50 grand profit in it, but my head wasn't there. So I'd done the rip out, and I sold it in the state it was in, and I still made sort of 15, 20 grand profit on it, I think, without finishing it off. So I left, and then when I came back, my outlook changed, because I realised that I've just taken 3 months out and everything had to stop. So at that point then, I started to buy, fix up, refurbish and refinance, and pull my money out and go again, and started to hold on to stock. Okay. So that's kind of how my journey went from early, and why.
Yeah, I've got a quick little question to sort of just stop you there.
Go ahead.
I learned a lesson from my grandfather, which in Stratford, he bought a house in the early 70s, and I think he bought it for £2,000 and he sold it for 6,000. Now, it might not sound like a lot of money, but that's just a 3x he's just done. And it's a lot of money back then when you're getting £5 a week or something.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, I've just, really made something here. So that was the first experience in our family of somebody who's flipped something. But then he also told me the story of within 6 months, that went from 6 grand to 60,000, because now we understand it from the cycle in the markets. When things crash, things go back in a boom, commodities reset at different prices, and this is why you do see the fluctuation in prices. So you're probably going to tell me, you're telling me already that you were buying properties around the 100,000 mark, around the 2000s. I know I was in the market around the 2010s for double that, which I thought I was getting kicked in the teeth for. Like, why am I paying double when my dad paid half price? And then now we see prices at 400, 500. So we see what the pattern that's going on. But the point I'm trying to make is, do you sell, flip and try to get your cash flow up, or do you keep? Because the lesson I've always been taught is you always keep. And it has worked over, for the last 10, 15 years, it's worked for me. You've got experience of both. So you've already told me Bow as well, and I know what Bow area is doing. What must that flat be worth now? Any regrets, or was that on your path to getting other things?
It was on the path. So I've bought houses and flats over the years, and I think the long-term game is I'll offload all of the flats because they're leasehold. Some of them have got 900 and whatever year leases on it, so they're virtual, so maybe I'll hold on to those. But it depends on the service charges also, can be a killer. But we won't go too much into that right now. So the plan is to offload the flats and keep the freehold houses in the long run. My dad, again, would say don't sell anything. But I've learned that sometimes you do have to sell. What's Bruce Lee say? You have to be like water. You have to be fluid. Yeah. You can't be closed mind and think, I'm never going to sell anything, because sometimes it just might make sense to just cash out. And it all depends really on what you do with the money.
Yes.
And what I've noticed for me and for other people, money tends to disappear through your hands very, very quickly. So I've never really kept cash. Whenever I know where the money's going before it even hits the account, I'm reinvesting it. It's going there, it's going there, it's doing this, it's doing that. Otherwise, I'm not selling. I'm not selling for the sake of it. I'm selling for a reason, because I'm going to reinvest over there.
So it's all about compounding.
100%.
You're only going to be selling if you can put it into another asset class that's going to go up in value.
That's going to grow, yeah.
Or if it has a better, outlook in terms of, as you say, by buying a house, guys, you're getting something that's freehold. You can get something that you can add some real value in terms of a rear extension, loft conversion, and there's no one trying to take it off you, or you need to renew a lease.
Yeah.
So
freehold and leasehold. Can I just cut in there?
I was going to bring it back to that, but please,
Oh yeah. Go on then. You lead.
So
it's your show.
What we're trying to bring back. So we didn't want to talk about service charge, but let's touch on that point quickly. What is the difference between a freehold and leasehold? So a lot of flats are leaseholds, and they come with other added extras. So we have council tax, and the flat has service charges, and also
ground rent.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this and how it sort of affects us differently? Because it might be easier these days to get to buy a flat.
Yeah.
But what are the other things that come with that? Cool.
So the way I would, freehold means you own the land, and when you own the house, the house sits on the land, so you are the freeholder. If you've got a flat where there are a number of flats built on the same piece of land, no one person can own the land. So that's the freeholder, and that's why you have a lease. You're paying for the right to sit on that land. So that's what the ground rent represents. They're changing the rules around ground rent at the minute, so I don't think they're going to abolish it effectively for new leases going forward. The way that I could describe freehold and leasehold is a bit like, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but parent and child, employer and employee, landlord and tenant. It's that sort of relationship. So you as the leaseholder are beholden to the rules set by the freeholder. So while it's advantageous to buy flats that are leasehold because, that's affordable and that makes sense and that's what you can do, it does come with all of these clauses within the lease that restricts your use or what you can do. So you mentioned building extensions and, you need permission from the freeholder to do anything, most things to the lease. It depends on what it says in the lease. But the person who dictates what goes in the lease is the freeholder. So there's pros and cons for using them, but on the whole, in the long run, freehold is better than leasehold.
Yes. So I would agree with Paul here on that point. Freeholds have always worked for me. But if you're someone who's new on the market and you do feel that you want to come in and you just want to get your foot on the ladder, then also, flats are not a bad bet. But what I would look out for are three things. I'd look at something you can still refurbish. Mm-hmm. The second thing I'd look at is, can you reconfigure that flat? So you might not be able to add on a rear extension or a loft conversion and just to confirm, guys, you can reach me on SeanLand_1. You can watch this podcast, obviously, on the Sean Land YouTube channel. And you can also press onto the link tree in the bio on our Instagram, and you can watch it and listen to it on Spotify as well.